Imagine your life has just completely collapsed. I mean, you're utterly exhausted, you're grieving the sudden tragic loss of your father, your relationships are crumbling around you, and your finances are just in absolute turmoil.
Right, you're entirely burnt out.
Yeah,
You've hit rock bottom.
exactly. But then right in the middle of all that darkness, your daughter hands you a crumpled, 100-year-old book. You start reading it, and suddenly you realize you've just stumbled across this hidden thread that connects the greatest minds in human history.
It sounds like a movie, honestly.
It really does. Welcome to The Book Nook, a podcast dedicated to exploring the most impactful and transformative books in self-help, spirituality, psychology, and personal growth. Today, we are doing a massive deep dive into a text that didn't just top bestseller lists, it fundamentally altered the cultural conversation around the entire globe.
Oh, absolutely.
We are talking, of course, about The Secret by Rhonda Byrne.
It is so great to be here for this one. And, calling it a cultural phenomenon almost feels like an understatement.
Yeah, it was everywhere.
It really was. When this book dropped, it just swept the world. Suddenly, everyone from, your next-door neighbor to major daytime talk show hosts was talking about vision boards and the law of attraction and manifesting.
I remember that. You couldn't escape it.
Exactly. And it generated these incredible, sweeping stories of transformed lives. People were writing in with, verifiable stories about restored relationships, absolute financial miracles, and overcoming just massive personal hurdles. And all of them claiming they did it by applying the exact principles in this book.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack the core mechanics of what The Secret actually is. We are going to look really closely at the law of attraction as it's presented by Rhonda Byrne and the 24 master teachers featured throughout the text.
Right, because there's a whole roster of experts in there.
There is, and we want to understand the lineage of this idea, how history's greatest minds supposedly utilize this exact knowledge, and most importantly, how the book claims you can apply it to your own life today.
That's a real takeaway for the listener, yeah.
Exactly. So we are going to break down the physics of thought, the role of your emotions, and the specific processes the book outlines for real-world manifestation.
Yeah, we're going to really get into the actual machinery of how this supposedly works. But before we explain the mechanics of The Secret, I think we first have to understand its historical weight.
The backstory, right?
Yeah, like why it was considered this hidden knowledge for centuries. Because the core premise, the actual secret itself, is the law of attraction.
Which is basically what...
Simply put, it's like attracts like and thoughts become things. But the book frames this knowledge as something that was incredibly coveted. It was guarded and passed down through the ages in whispers,
Right, and that brings us back to that origin story I mentioned in the hook. Because Rhonda Byrne's realization didn't start with some profound meditation retreat on a mountaintop.
No, it was born out of absolute crisis.
It started in a moment of absolute rock-bottom despair. Her daughter, Haley, gives her this century-old book, and many believe that book to be Wallace D. Wattles' The Science of Getting Rich, which was written way back in 1910.
Which is an incredible text on its own, by the way.
It really is. And that ancient text sparked something in her. It caused her to start tracing this concept back through history. And what she found, according to the book, was just astonishing.
Because it wasn't just a modern trend.
Exactly. This wasn't some new age 21st century fad. It was a thread woven through the entire tapestry of human civilization.
The historical evidence she presents in the text is actually fascinating. She points out that this concept was recorded in stone on the Emerald Tablet, going back to circa 3000 BC.
Wait, 3000 BC?
Yeah, thousands of years ago. And for those who might not know, the Emerald Tablet is this mythical ancient artifact attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. It's basically the foundation of Hermetic philosophy and alchemy.
Oh, wow.
And the most famous translation from that tablet is the phrase, as above, so below, as within, so without.
As within, so without. That just gives the concept this incredible archaic weight.
It really grounds it.
It does. It's not just a self-help slogan you'd see on a bumper sticker. It's this ancient philosophical idea that our internal world, our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotional state, literally mirrors and creates the external universe we experience.
And the historical trail in the book doesn't just stop with ancient artifacts either. It moves right into ancient civilizations. Specifically, the Babylonians.
Oh, right. The Babylonians.
Yeah, they are a prime example in the text. I mean, we all know about the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, right?
Right.
One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world.
Right, a massive feat of engineering and wealth.
Exactly. And the book posits that the Babylonians used these universal laws to become one of the wealthiest races in history.
Hmm.
They didn't just, get lucky with geography or trade routes.
They knew something else.
They applied a profound collective understanding of universal laws to amass unprecedented prosperity. They essentially understood the mechanics of generating wealth from thought.
And then the book just drops a staggering array of historical giants who supposedly knew and used this exact secret.
Oh, the list is wild.
I mean, we are talking about Plato, Galileo, Beethoven, Thomas Edison, Andrew Carnegie, Albert
It
Einstein.
keeps going, yeah. Shakespeare, Sir Isaac Newton, Victor Hugo.
Right. Abraham Lincoln, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Pythagoras, Sir Francis Bacon, Socrates, Leonardo da Vinci, and Johann Wolfgang von Goethe.
It's literally a who's who of human genius.
Yeah.
And the argument The Secret makes is that these titans of intellect, creativity, and progress achieved immortality in their respective fields precisely because they understood the power of their own minds.
They were actively using it.
Exactly. They didn't just have high IQs or really good work ethics. They understood the law of attraction and deliberately harnessed it to bend reality to their visions.
Okay, I have to jump in here and push back a little bit.
Go for it.
Because this is where my skeptical alarm bells start ringing. If this is a universal law, just like gravity, why did it feel like an exclusive VIP club for thousands of years?
That is a very fair question.
Right, because if this knowledge is so inherently transformative and natural, why wasn't it taught in schools? Why did Rhonda Byrne have to dig it up from a 100-year-old book and piece it together from ancient tablets? I mean, why wasn't my high school guidance counselor teaching me the Emerald Tablet?
I'd love that.
Yeah.
And honestly, that is the exact question Dr. Dennis Waitley addresses in the text. He's a psychologist and trainer in the field of mind potential, and his observation is a bit of a gut punch.
What does he say?
He argues that the leaders in the past who had this secret deliberately wanted to keep the power for themselves. They did not want to share it.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, whether consciously or unconsciously, the elite understood that knowledge is power. And by keeping the masses ignorant of their own internal power, the elite maintained control.
Waitley says they kept people on a treadmill, right?
Exactly, a treadmill.
People went to work, they did their manual labor, came home, and just stayed on this exhausting loop with no real power to change their circumstances. It's like having the ultimate cheat code to a video game, but refusing to share it on the forums so you can stay at the top of the global leaderboard forever.
That is a perfect analogy. The elite utilized these principles of unwavering belief, clear vision, and dominant thoughts of success, while the general population was just kept occupied with daily survival.
Just keeping their heads above water.
Right, and conditioned with the belief that life just happens to them. But Rhonda Byrne's mission, as she describes it, was this burning desire to break that exclusivity.
She wanted to let everyone in on it.
When she realized the magnitude of what she discovered, she asked herself, why doesn't everyone know this? And that question became the catalyst for the entire project.
She really wanted to democratize it. She became a magnet herself, searching out people alive today who understood and taught these principles. She gathered this incredible roster of 24 master teachers.
People who had dedicated their lives to this.
Yeah, people like Bob Proctor, who's a philosopher and personal coach, Dr. Joe Vitale, a metaphysician, Dr. John DeMartini, a personal transformation specialist, and Michael Bernard Beckwith, a visionary leader. She brought them all together to take this knowledge from the exclusive domain of the historical elite and broadcast it to the entire world.
And framing it this way is highly intentional, by the way. If you were going to present a paradigm-shifting concept to the modern world, showing that it was the engine behind Shakespeare's plays, Beethoven's symphonies, and Edison's inventions, lends it profound credibility.
It makes you pay attention.
It challenges you, the listener, to ask, well, if it worked for them, why couldn't it work for me? But to move past the history and understand how it actually works for anyone, we really have to look at what the book calls the physics of thought.
And here is where it gets really interesting and where we need to separate the poetic metaphors from the mechanical claims.
Yeah, because it gets very specific.
Because it's one thing to say thoughts become things as a nice motivational poster in a corporate break room. But The Secret argues that this is a literal mechanical physical process. To explain this, the book uses some incredible analogies. Let's start with the human magnet.
Okay, the magnet analogy.
John Assaraf, one of the teachers in the book, says, the simplest way to look at the law of attraction is to think of yourself as a human magnet. Your predominant thought or mental attitude acts as the magnetic force.
Right, and the law is that like attracts like. So your mental attitude will invariably attract conditions that correspond to its nature. Prentice Mulford, another author quoted heavily in the text, says it very bluntly. He says, every thought of yours is a real thing, a force.
That is a crucial shift in perspective. If you are listening to this right now, think about how you view your own thoughts.
Most of us don't really think about our thoughts at all.
Exactly. Most of us view our thoughts as these ephemeral, harmless little clouds floating through our heads. They exist purely inside the skull, right? If I have a negative thought, it doesn't matter because nobody else heard it.
It's private.
Right. But the secret demands that you view your thoughts as active, tangible forces in the physical world. You are, as the text states, the most powerful magnet in the universe, and that unfathomable magnetic power is emitted entirely through your thoughts.
And the book introduces another analogy to explain the mechanics of this, which is the transmission tower.
Oh, I love this one.
Think about a television transmission tower. It broadcasts on a specific frequency, and that frequency is transformed into pictures on your TV screen. If you tune your television to Channel 5, you get the broadcast for Channel 5.
Right.
You don't sit there expecting to see what's on Channel 7. The mechanism is exact.
And the book says that humans are the most powerful transmission towers in the universe. When you think a thought, you are emitting a specific, measurable frequency. That thought travels out into the universe, magnetically attracts all things that are vibrating on that exact frequency, and then returns to the source.
And source is you.
Yes, the source is you. But the pictures being broadcast back to you aren't showing up on a TV screen in your living room. They are manifesting as the actual physical experiences of your life.
And here's where we need to unpack the science the book uses to back this up. Because they don't just leave it at the transmission tower metaphor.
No, they go deep into the science.
The text attempts to ground this metaphysical concept in modern quantum physics. Dr. Fred Alan Wolf, a quantum physicist featured in the text, says, I'm not talking to you from the point of view of wishful thinking or imaginary craziness. I'm talking to you from a deeper, basic understanding.
Okay, let's slow down here, because I know a lot of people hear quantum physics used in self-help and immediately roll their eyes.
It is buzzword for sure.
So how exactly does quantum physics validate the idea that my thoughts about getting a promotion will actually get me a promotion?
It's a fair point of skepticism. And it's worth noting here that while Byrne leans heavily on quantum physics to validate this, specifically citing the observer effect, many mainstream physicists push back on applying subatomic mechanics to macro-level human desires.
Right, they say it doesn't scale up that way.
Exactly. But within the framework of the book, this quantum connection is the absolute bedrock of how the law of attraction functions. In quantum mechanics, specifically illustrated by things like the double slit experiment, particles exist in a state of probability until they're observed.
Right, the observer effect. The act of measuring or looking at a subatomic particle literally changes its behavior. Before you look, it's just this wave of potential. When you look, it collapses into a definitive particle.
Exactly. Dr. Wolf and the book extrapolate that principle to the macro universe. They suggest that you cannot have a universe without mind entering into it. The mind is actively shaping the very thing that is being perceived.
So it's not just a passive background.
No, the universe isn't a static, unyielding room that you just walked into. It's a dynamic field of potential that responds to the frequency of your observation. So when you hold a dominant, focused thought, you are acting as the observer, collapsing the wave of universal potential into the physical reality you were experiencing.
That is just profoundly empowering. I mean, if you have ever felt insignificant, if you've ever felt like you're just a tiny speck in a massive, chaotic universe where things just happen to you randomly.
Which a lot of people feel.
Yeah, realizing that your mind might be actively shaping the physical world around you changes everything. It means you aren't just a passenger locked in the trunk. You are the driver with your hands on the wheel.
It is empowering, absolutely. But it introduces a massive, glaring logistical nightmare.
Oh, the 60,000 thoughts problem?
Precisely. Because if my thoughts are broadcasting a frequency that creates my reality, how on earth do I control my thoughts? Marcy Shimoff points out a staggering statistic in the book. The average person has about 60,000 thoughts a day.
60,000.
Yeah, if you try to consciously monitor, evaluate, and control 60,000 individual thoughts, you would exhaust yourself before breakfast. It's biologically impossible. We have fleeting thoughts, contradictory thoughts, and thousands of subconscious thoughts bubbling up constantly.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at a 10-minute span of my morning, I'm thinking about what to have for dinner, worrying about a deadline at work, feeling anxious about a weird noise my car is making, remembering an embarrassing thing I said 5 years ago at a party, and wondering if I left the stove on.
Exactly.
If every single one of those is a transmission, my broadcast is pure static. The universe must be getting a completely schizophrenic signal from me. So how do we manage this? If the dashboard is flashing 60,000 different signals a day, how do we navigate?
Well, the book provides an incredibly elegant shortcut. You don't monitor the thoughts, you monitor your feelings.
Okay, the emotional dashboard.
Your feelings are the ultimate built-in feedback mechanism, letting you know exactly what frequency you are broadcasting at any given moment.
I love the analogy we were discussing before the show about the Spotify algorithm. Think of your subconscious mind and your thoughts like a Spotify algorithm. If you keep clicking on sad, stressful, anxiety-inducing songs, the algorithm doesn't judge you.
No, it doesn't try to cheer you up.
Right. It doesn't say, hey, maybe you should listen to some upbeat pop music. It just says, okay, they are engaging with this. They must want more of this. And it auto-cues more stress. Your feelings are the user interface. Your feelings tell you what playlist your algorithm is currently generating.
That's brilliant. You don't have to look at the back-end code, the 60,000 thoughts. You just look at the UI, which is your current feeling. Bob Doyle explains that most people attract by default.
By default.
Yeah, because we don't think we have control. Our thoughts and feelings operate on autopilot. No one deliberately attracts bad things into their lives. Nobody wakes up and says, I'd like a car accident, a massive unexpected tax bill, and a fight with my spouse today.
Obviously not.
But a lack of awareness of this creative power causes those unwanted things to manifest.
They are broadcasting a frequency of stress, fear, or lack without realizing it, and the universe is simply matching that frequency and returning it to them as physical circumstances.
It just delivers what you broadcast.
Exactly. If you feel good, if you feel joy, gratitude, excitement, that feeling is your internal dashboard telling you you are currently broadcasting on a frequency that will attract more good things. If you feel bad, angry, resentful, fearful, that's your dashboard flashing red, warning you are currently broadcasting on a frequency that will attract negative circumstances.
And the great part is, you don't need to trace back exactly which of the 60,000 thoughts caused the bad feeling. You don't need to psychoanalyze yourself in that moment.
Thank goodness.
You just need to recognize the feeling and actively pivot your focus to change the frequency. Because this raises one of those critical and often misunderstood concepts in the text. The law of inclusion.
Oh, this is massive. Please explain the law of inclusion because this completely changed how I look at my own complaining.
The universe operates strictly on inclusion, not exclusion. What this means is that whatever you hold in your mind, you are summoning into your experience, even if you are thinking about how much you don't want it.
Wait, really?
Yes, the text is explicit on this. The law of attraction does not compute negatives like don't, not, or no.
It's the classic psychological trap. If I tell you right now, do not think of a pink elephant, what is the very first thing your brain has to do?
You picture a pink elephant.
It has to generate an image of a pink elephant in order to process the command. So if you are intensely focused on debt and your persistent thought is, I don't want to be in debt anymore, I'm so sick of this debt, I hate my credit card bills, what frequency are you broadcasting?
The universe just hears debt, debt, debt. You are emitting the frequency of debt, and worse, you are infusing it with a strong emotion of hate or fear, which acts as an amplifier.
The feeling turbocharges the thought.
The emotional charge makes the magnetic pole even stronger. Lisa Nichols puts it brilliantly in the text. She says, your whole life is a manifestation of the thoughts that go on in your head. You have drawn the people, the job, the circumstances, the debt, the joy, all of it. Nothing can come into your experience unless you summon it through persistent thoughts.
Okay, so if our internal Spotify algorithm is auto-cueing anxiety and lack, and we realize our dashboard is flashing red, how do we manually override the system?
They need tools.
Because knowing I'm emitting a negative frequency sometimes just makes me more anxious, which creates a negative feedback loop. What's the circuit breaker? Byrne argues we need tools to force a frequency shift. And that brings us to the powerful processes outlined in the book, which are gratitude and visualization.
Let's start with gratitude, because The Secret frames this as the ultimate turbocharger for your desires.
Yeah.
Bob Proctor gives a very specific formula for the first step of what the book calls the creative process, which is to ask. He says you shouldn't just vaguely think about what you want. You need to write it down. And he gives this exact phrase to start with. I am so happy and grateful now that you can, and then you fill in the rest of the sentence with your desire.
The wording there is so deliberate. I am so happy and grateful now that it's written in the present tense. It's not, I will be happy when I finally get out of debt. It assumes the manifestation is already a completed fact. But why gratitude? I mean, why not just demand it?
Because of the biochemistry and the frequency shift it creates. When you are desiring something, the underlying feeling is almost always that you don't currently have it.
You're in a state of lack.
You are operating from a state of lack. You want a new car because your current car is broken, so your dominant feeling is frustration with the broken car. Gratitude neutralizes that lack instantly.
Yeah.
You cannot feel truly grateful and resentful at the same time. You cannot feel grateful and impoverished at the same time.
Let's unpack the science behind that for a second, because it's not just mystical, it's physiological.
Oh, absolutely.
When you consciously shift your mind to a state of gratitude, your brain actually reduces cortisol production, which is the stress hormone, and increases the production of dopamine and oxytocin. You aren't just thinking happy thoughts. You are literally bathing your cellular structure in a different chemical compound.
You're physically changing.
You are changing your biological frequency. Gratitude tunes your transmission tower to the exact frequency of having already received the good thing.
And the book points out that Albert Einstein, one of the greatest minds to ever live, used gratitude constantly. He said thank you hundreds of times a day to the scientists who had preceded him.
Hundreds of times.
Yeah. He didn't invent the theory of relativity in a vacuum. He understood that acknowledging the good that had already been given to him was the exact frequency required to receive more insights and more knowledge from the universe.
But once we've used gratitude to get our frequency right and we've asked for what we want, we move to the second major process, which is visualization. And I think this is where a lot of people get tripped up.
It's definitely misunderstood.
Because visualization, according to the book, is not just daydreaming. It's not just lying on your couch, making pretty pictures in your head, and hoping a bag of cash falls down the chimney.
No, it is an incredibly active, intensely focused process. The book references Charles Haanel's 1912 book, The Master Key System, which provided 24 weekly exercises specifically designed to help people master the art of visualization and thought control.
It's a skill.
It is. The reason visualization works, according to the text, is because when you create a detailed picture in your mind of seeing yourself with what you want, you are simultaneously generating the feelings of having it right now.
It's the feeling that is the secret sauce. If you visualize a new house but you feel anxious about the mortgage, you're transmitting anxiety. The visualization has to generate the feeling of joy, relief, and ownership.
Exactly.
It's powerfully focused thought in pictures, causing equally powerful feelings. You are emitting a potent frequency, and the law of attraction grabs that signal and returns it to you exactly as you saw and felt it in your mind.
The examples of the great inventors using this are fascinating. The Wright brothers are a perfect case study.
Oh, yeah.
When they were trying to invent the airplane, everyone told them they were insane. The physics of the day said heavier-than-air flight was impossible. If they had looked at their current reality, they would have quit. But they didn't look at reality. They visualized it.
Same with George Eastman and the invention of roll film, or Thomas Edison with the light bulb, or Alexander Graham Bell with the telephone. The book argues that the only way these paradigm-shifting inventions were created is because one person saw a clear picture in his mind that did not exist in the physical world.
They saw the end result.
They held that picture of the end result, and they had what the text calls utter faith in the invisible.
That's the key right there, faith in the invisible. They knew their internal power could leverage the universe to bring the invisible invention into the visible world. They didn't obsess over how it would happen.
The how is the trap.
Exactly. If Edison had obsessed over the how, he wouldn't have tried 10,000 different materials for their light bulb filament. He just focused on the end result, a glowing bulb, and let the universe guide him through the failures to the correct how.
And this leads to what the text calls the secret to the secret. If you strip away the vision boards, the affirmations, and the journaling, there is an ultimate shortcut to manifestation.
The fastest way to get there.
The shortcut to anything you want in your life is to be and feel happy right now.
It sounds almost too simple, but it's a radical shift from how society conditions us. We constantly condition our happiness on external events. We say, I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll be happy when I find my soulmate. I'll be happy when the mortgage is paid.
We put it off.
We put happiness on layaway.
Yes. The secret flips that entire paradigm on its head. It says you must radiate joy and happiness first, before the thing arrives. Emitting joy acts as a homing beacon.
A beacon for more joy.
When you radiate happiness unconditionally, the universe has no choice but to reflect back to you all the physical circumstances that match that frequency of joy, which naturally includes wealth, health, and success. Joy isn't the reward at the end of the journey, it is the actual fuel that makes the journey happen. You have to manufacture the feeling of the destination before you've even backed your car out of the driveway.
Okay, but this is the perfect time for us to push back again and look at the real-world application. Because it's one thing to say, be happy, visualize, and use gratitude to improve your mood.
Sure.
Most psychologists would agree that optimism is good for your mental health. But it's another thing entirely when the book claims that these mental processes dictate the literal zeros in our bank accounts and the cellular biology of our physical bodies. Let's look at how the book tackles real-world manifestations, starting with wealth.
The book tackles money head-on, and it makes some incredibly bold claims. Bob Proctor asks a very provocative question in the text. He asks, why do you think that 1% of the population earns around 96% of all the money that's being earned? Do you think that's an accident?
His answer, unequivocally, is no.
Yes.
It is designed that way because that 1% understands the secret.
Right.
According to Proctor and Byrne, the ultra-wealthy think predominant thoughts of abundance and wealth. They do not allow contradictory thoughts of poverty or lack to take root in their minds. Their dominant frequency is wealth, and so wealth is drawn to them by the law of attraction, regardless of the economy, regardless of their background.
Now, if you are listening to this on your commute right now and thinking, okay, this sounds incredibly out of touch with systemic inequality and socioeconomic realities, you aren't alone.
Not at all.
That is the #1 criticism of this book. But let's stay within the framework of the text to understand the logic. The book gives this fascinating example of the dynamic of wealth loss to prove the point about frequency over circumstance.
All right, we've all heard stories of incredibly wealthy people, entrepreneurs, lottery winners, who make millions and then suddenly lose everything. They go bankrupt.
It happens all the time.
According to The Secret, this happens because fearful thoughts of loss began to dominate their minds. Even though they had money, their frequency shifted to fear. They tuned their transmission tower to losing money, and the universe delivered bankruptcy.
But here is the incredible part of that dynamic. Once the money is completely gone, the fear of losing it disappears.
Because the worst has already happened.
Right. They are broke. So the fear vanishes, and because their baseline habit is thinking about big money and wealth generation, their dominant thoughts naturally tip back to their habitual frequency of wealth. And what happens? The money flows right back to them. The law responds to their thoughts, no matter what their current bank balance says.
It's a compelling illustration of how the law is completely impartial. It doesn't judge whether a thought is good or bad for you, doesn't care if you are a good person or a bad person. It operates like a mirror, only reflecting the frequency you provide.
Exactly.
But where the application of these principles becomes even more profound and honestly much more controversial is in the realm of health. The book delves deeply into the mind-body connection, and it brings in medical professionals and quantum physicists to back it up.
Let's talk about Dr. John Hagelin. He's a quantum physicist, and he says flatly in the book, our body is really the product of our thoughts.
That's a huge statement.
He points out that medical science is beginning to understand how the nature of our thoughts and emotions actually determines the physical substance, structure, and function of our bodies. He argues that negative thoughts and stress literally degrade the body because our thoughts are continuously reassembling and recreating our physical form at a cellular level.
This isn't just metaphor either. When you hold thoughts of stress, fear, or anger, your brain triggers the fight or flight response. You flood your body with cortisol and adrenaline. Over time, that constant chemical bath degrades your immune system, raises your blood pressure, and creates an environment where disease thrives.
It wears you down physically.
Conversely, happier thoughts lead to happier biochemistry. But the book goes much further than basic stress management. Dr. John DeMartini brings up the placebo effect, which is arguably the most undeniable, scientifically documented evidence for the power of the mind over the body.
The placebo effect is wild when you really think about it. It is universally acknowledged in modern medicine. You give a patient a completely inert sugar pill, but you tell them with absolute authority that it is a powerful breakthrough medication.
And what happens?
Often the patient experiences the exact physical healing effect the real medication would have provided, and sometimes the healing is even greater than the actual drug group.
Dr. DeMartini's explanation for this within the framework of The Secret is that the placebo works because the patient shifts their attention from being sick to being well. The belief itself is the cure.
The belief is the cure. Wow.
The absolute expectation of healing changes their frequency. Their brain, believing the pill is doing the work, signals the body to release its own endogenous opioids, painkillers, and immune responses. The body physically reorganizes itself to match the mental frequency of wellness.
Prentice Mulford is quoted saying, "Every unpleasant thought is a bad thing, literally put in the body." And then Dr. Ben Johnson makes a massive sweeping claim. He says we are entering the era of energy medicine. Since everything in the universe, including a virus or a tumor, has a specific frequency, all you have to do is change your frequency or create an opposite frequency to change physical disease.
He calls it the biggest thing we have ever come across.
The book actually mentions that after the film version of The Secret was released, they were inundated with letters from people experiencing miraculous healings, claiming diseases simply dissolved from their bodies by changing their focus and believing in their inherent wellness.
Now, this is a point where we have to pause. Critical thinking and context are absolutely essential here.
Yes, definitely.
When you introduce the idea that our thoughts are the primary, undeniable cause of everything in our physical experience, including our health and our wealth, it naturally raises a very heavy, deeply uncomfortable question of responsibility. If we create our own reality 100% of the time, what does that mean for someone experiencing severe illness?
Or extreme poverty.
What does it mean for someone born into extreme poverty or facing a genuinely tragic life situation? Are they to blame for their suffering? Did a child manifest their illness?
This is exactly where I think a huge portion of people push back on this concept, and rightly so. It can feel dangerously close to victim blaming if it's not handled with incredible nuance. If I look at a life circumstance I despise, say I'm laid off and diagnosed with an illness in the same week, and you tell me I attracted it, that is a bitter, infuriating pill to swallow.
It feels very punitive.
It feels punitive, but how does the book actually address this? Because it does attempt to tackle this paradox.
It does. The book explicitly advises, don't become mesmerized by the pictures that have appeared if they are not what you want. It tells you to take responsibility for your reality, which is a very different psychological mechanism than taking blame.
Responsibility versus blame.
Blaming yourself is a punitive, backward-looking emotion. It keeps you stuck on a frequency of guilt and shame, which, according to the law, will just attract more things to feel guilty and ashamed about. Responsibility, however, is forward-looking. It is the recognition of agency.
It's the realization that, as Bob Doyle noted earlier, most of us have been attracting by default. We were on autopilot. We didn't know we were broadcasting fear.
Right, it was unconscious.
So the emphasis isn't on punishing yourself for unconscious past thoughts. The emphasis is on recognizing the current reflection in the mirror of your life, acknowledging that past thoughts created it, and then using that realization as the power to consciously choose different thoughts for your future. You say, okay, my past unconscious thoughts built this reality. Therefore, my present conscious thoughts can build a new one.
That's a crucial distinction. You acknowledge the circumstance without giving it emotional power. The book advises you to make light of negative situations if you can, let them go, and deliberately think new thoughts of what you do want. Dr. Demartini provides a phenomenal framework for this when he says, when the voice and the vision on the inside become more profound, clear, and loud than the opinions on the outside, you've mastered your life.
When the voice and the vision on the inside become more profound than the opinions on the outside. That is incredible, and that perfectly transitions us into why this book matters so deeply and who actually benefits from reading it.
Bringing it back to the daily application.
Because bringing all these monumental cosmic ideas from quantum physics to Babylon to the placebo effect, bringing it back down to our mundane daily lives is what makes it practical. Marcy Shimoff synthesizes the core value of this book beautifully near the end. She points out a fundamental flaw in how Western culture operates.
Yes. She notes that in Western culture, we are completely obsessed with striving for outer success. We are taught that the external world is the source of our internal state.
We work from the outside in.
So we scramble and fight for the big house, the booming business, the perfect partner, the promotion, because we falsely believe that those outer things will finally guarantee our inner happiness. We think, if I can just arrange the furniture of my life perfectly, I'll be at peace.
We approach life entirely backward. We say, when I have those things, then I will feel happy. The Secret flips that entire paradigm on its head. It asserts that inner happiness and deliberate, focused thought must come first. You cannot acquire enough outer things to permanently change your inner frequency.
It just doesn't work that way.
You must change your inner frequency to permanently magnetize the outer success. The outer world is just the mirror. You can't change the reflection in the mirror by aggressively polishing the glass. You have to change the object doing the reflecting, which is your own mind.
Exactly. So who is the target audience for this? Who benefits most? Really, it's anyone who feels stuck on that treadmill Dr. Whaley mentioned. Anyone who feels like their life is on autopilot, or that they are merely a victim of random, cruel circumstances.
People who feel powerless.
It's for anyone who wants to take the reins and experiment with harnessing the exact same creative power that history's greatest minds allegedly utilized. It reminds me of that famous quote from Henry Ford featured in the book, which perfectly distills this entire philosophy into one sentence. Whether you think you can or think you can't, either way you are right.
That quote is flawless.
Mhm.
If you underestimate yourself and think you can't, you broadcast that frequency, and the universe perfectly agrees with you and blocks your path. If you realize you have immense power, the universe agrees with that too and opens the doors.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the mechanics of the secret, I want to leave you with a deeply profound, almost existential thought from Charles Haanel. He wrote this nearly a century ago in 1912 in the Master Key System, long before modern quantum cosmology confirmed many of these ideas about the observer effect.
What did he say?
Haanel wrote, "The universal mind is not only an intelligence, but it is substance. Ultimately, we are the source of the universe."
Wow, we are the source of the universe. Let that sink in for a moment. You are not just a tiny, insignificant biological being existing inside a massive, cold, indifferent universe that's happening to you. According to this text, you are eternal energy. You are the source. You are the supreme mind actively creating and organizing the universe around you with every single thought and feeling you have.
It's an immense realization.
It is a staggering level of responsibility to accept, but it is also the ultimate absolute freedom.
It truly is. It challenges you to stop looking outside yourself for the answers, for the validation, or for the rescue, and to recognize the unfathomable power you hold right now, in this exact moment, simply by choosing your next thought.
What an incredible, thought-provoking journey through a truly paradigm-shifting book. Whether you view it as literal physics or a powerful psychological framework, the impact of changing your focus is undeniable. We highly recommend exploring the text yourself to see how these principles might resonate in your own life and your own daily practices. Thank you for joining us. We invite you to subscribe to the Book Nug so you never miss a deep dive. And we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us which book you'd like us to explore next. We read every single one.